Victor Ashford stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown Chicago penthouse, watching the city lights flicker like dying stars. His empire, Ashford Technologies, a titan in the pharmaceutical industry, had been built on precision, control, and the systematic elimination of weakness. At 52, he'd achieved everything measurable, a net worth approaching 9 figures, a name that made boardrooms straighten their spines, and a reputation for ruthlessness that preceded him like a cold wind. What he didn't have was his daughter's voice. 15-year-old Cassandra had been silent for 3 weeks now, lying motionless in the intensive care unit of Chicago Memorial Hospital. The skiing accident in Aspen had been swift and merciless, a collision with a tree at 40 miles per hour, her helmet cracking like an eggshell. The doctors spoke in their careful language of traumatic brain injury and medically induced coma, and we're doing everything we can. Victor had responded the only way he knew how, by throwing money at the problem. He'd flown in specialists from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and even a controversial neurologist from Switzerland. He'd had a private wing of the hospital essentially purchased for Cassandra's care. He'd funded 3 separate research initiatives into coma recovery. What he hadn't done was sit with her. There's no point, he'd told his ex-wife, Margaret, when she'd pleaded with him during one of her visits. She can't hear me. The scans show minimal brain activity. I'm more useful directing her care from a strategic level. Margaret had looked at him with those sad, knowing eyes, the same eyes that had watched their marriage dissolve 5 years ago. You always were better at managing crises than feeling them, Victor. It was a Thursday evening in late October, when Victor's carefully ordered world first encountered Zara Mitchell. He was leaving the hospital, after a brief meeting with Cassandra's care team, 15 minutes scheduled between a conference call with Tokyo and dinner with potential investors. He'd parked in the underground garage as always, avoiding the main entrance where reporters occasionally lurked, hoping for a quote about the tragic accident involving the tech mogul's daughter. The garage exit led to a service alley behind the hospital, a grimy corridor between 2 worlds that Victor typically traversed in seconds. Tonight, something made him pause. A young black woman sat huddled against the brick wall, wrapped in a threadbare coat despite the October chill. She couldn't have been more than 19 or 20. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she clutched a cardboard sign that read, "Homeless. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless." Victor had perfected the art of not seeing such people. In his worldview, poverty was a symptom of poor choices and lack of ambition. He'd started with nothing himself, a scholarship kid from rural Indiana, who'd clawed his way up through sheer will and intelligence. If he could do it, anyone could. He was about to walk past when she spoke. "Your daughter's dreaming about you." Victor stopped mid-stride. He turned slowly, his face arranging itself into the cold mask that had intimidated countless competitors. "Excuse me." The young woman looked up at him with dark, intelligent eyes that seemed far older than her years. "Cassandra. 5th floor, room 507. She's dreaming about you right now. About a birthday party when she was 7. You gave her a telescope." The blood drained from Victor's face. The telescope incident was real, one of the few childhood memories he'd bothered to create before work consumed everything. But more disturbing was the room number, which he'd never shared publicly. The hospital had kept Cassandra's location confidential to protect the family's privacy. "How do you know my daughter's name?" His voice was low, dangerous. "If this is some kind of extortion attempt, I'm not trying to take anything from you, Mr. Ashford." Zara stood up slowly, her thin frame unfolding to reveal she was taller than he'd initially thought. "I'm trying to give you something. Information you need. I don't need anything from someone living in an alley. Don't you?" She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "When's the last time you actually sat with your daughter? Not stood in the doorway reviewing charts. Not called for updates. Actually sat beside her and held her hand. That's none of your. 3 weeks ago, you visited for 4 minutes. 2 weeks ago, 6 minutes. Last week, twice, 3 minutes and 5 minutes. This week, just today, 9 minutes, but you spent 7 of them on your phone." Victor felt ice spreading through his chest. "You've been watching me." "I've been watching out for her," Zara corrected. "Someone needs to. My daughter has round-the-clock care from the finest medical professionals in the country. She has machines keeping her body alive," Zara said quietly. "What she needs is her father to give her a reason to wake up." Victor pulled out his phone. "I'm calling security." "Go ahead. But before you do, ask yourself one question. How did I know about the telescope? About the dream she's having right this moment?" Zara's eyes held his. "Because I can hear her, Mr. Ashford. I don't know why or how, but I can hear what your daughter is trying to say. And she's begging you to turn off the machines." Victor didn't call security. Instead, against every instinct screaming at him that this was a con, he found himself the next morning pulling up to the same alley in his Bentley, accompanied by his head of security, Marcus, Zara was there, eating something from a styrofoam container that smelled like charity kitchen food. 5 minutes, Victor announced, climbing out of the car while Marcus watched with his hand near his concealed weapon. Prove what you said, or I'm having you arrested for stalking and harassment. Zara set down her food carefully. Last night at 2:47 a.m., the nurse, the one with the red hair, Janet, adjusted Cassandra's for. Your daughter's heart rate spiked for 30 seconds. The doctors will tell you it was meaningless, an autonomic response. Victor's jaw tightened. He'd received the notification on his phone. His hospital monitoring app flagged any unusual changes. That's in the medical record. You could have hacked. She was scared, Zara interrupted. In that moment, she thought the adjustment meant they were giving up on her. She wanted to scream that she was still in there, still fighting. But she couldn't. The fear spike caused the heart rate increase. That's speculation. At 4:15 a.m., a different nurse, male, younger, someone she doesn't recognize, came in to check her vitals. She tried to remember his face, wondered if you'd hired him. She's keeping track of everyone who touches her because she's afraid. Afraid that you've decided she's not worth the investment anymore. Victor's hands clenched into fists. I would never, wouldn't you? Zara stood, facing him directly. Your business is about cost-benefit analysis. You've told 3 people in the past week that Cassandra's care is costing you $17,000 a day. You've asked 2 separate doctors about long-term prognosis and quality of life scenarios. Your daughter can't see your face or hear your words, but she can feel your absence. She knows you're calculating whether she's worth it. How dare you? This morning at 6:30, Margaret came in. She sang the lullaby she used to sing when Cassandra had nightmares. The one about the mockingbird. Cassandra cried, not with tears you could see, but inside, she cried because that song means safety and home and love. Things she's not feeling from you. Victor's phone buzzed. He looked down at a text from Margaret, just left the hospital. Sang to her this morning. I know it's silly, but I remember how it used to calm her. Around 6:30. Hope you're planning to visit today, the timestamp matched perfectly. Okay, Victor said, his voice barely above a whisper. Let's say I believe you, which I don't, not fully. But let's say you somehow can hear her thoughts, or sense her, or whatever this is. What's your endgame? Money. You want me to pay you for these supposed messages? Zara looked at him with something that might have been pity. I want you to understand what she's been trying to tell you. Turn off the machines, Mr. Ashford. Not because she's giving up. Because she's ready to fight, and she can't do it while they're doing all the work for her. That's insane. The ventilator is keeping her alive, it's keeping her comfortable, Zara corrected. The doctors told you 3 days ago that her brain activity has been increasing. That she's showing signs of spontaneous breathing. But every time her body tries to take over, the machines breathe for her. Every time she tries to wake up, the sedatives keep her under. Victor's head was spinning. This was true. Dr. Pearson had mentioned they were considering weaning back the ventilator support, but they wanted to wait another week, be cautious. Why would you care? He asked Zara. Why would you, living in an alley, spend time worrying about a rich man's daughter? For the first time, Zara's confident mask slipped. Her eyes glistened. Because I know what it's like to need your father and have him not show up. And because your daughter's voice is the only one keeping me sane in this city. I don't know why I can hear her, maybe God, maybe brain damage from when my ex-boyfriend beat me half to death last year, maybe I'm just crazy. But I hear her. And she deserves someone who will fight for what she needs, not what's convenient. Victor didn't believe in supernatural phenomena. He didn't believe in psychics or miracles or divine intervention. But he believed in data, and the data Zara had provided was unnervingly accurate. So he did something he hadn't done in 3 weeks. He cleared his calendar. Cancel everything, he told his assistant, Rebecca. The Tokyo meeting, the investor dinner, the board prep. Everything. Sir, the Tokyo meeting represents a potential $300 million, I said cancel it. He spent that day in room 507, sitting in the chair beside Cassandra's bed, really looking at his daughter for the first time since the accident. She looked so small, dwarfed by the machinery that beeped and hummed around her. The ventilator tube disappeared between her pale lips. Her strawberry blonde hair, usually meticulously maintained, was limp and lifeless on the pillow. When had she gotten so thin? Had she always had that small scar on her left hand? I don't know if you can hear me, he said awkwardly, feeling ridiculous talking to an unconscious person. The doctors say maybe you can. Your mother thinks you can. There's a young woman who claims she can hear you. Which is impossible, obviously. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. But if you can hear me, I want you to know. He stopped, the words catching in his throat. I want you to know that I'm sorry. For not being here. For treating your recovery like a business problem to be solved. Your mother was right. I've always been better at managing crises than feeling them. He picked up her hand, startled by how cool it felt. When was the last time he'd held his daughter's hand? When you were 7, he continued, his voice thick. I gave you that telescope. Do you remember? You'd been asking for months. You wanted to see the stars up close, you said. Like maybe if you could see them better, you could understand how big the universe was. Victor felt something wet on his cheek and realized with shock that he was crying. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried. We went up on the roof that night, even though it was freezing. December, I think. And you were so excited that your hands were shaking when you tried to adjust the focus. I had to help you. And when you finally got Jupiter in view, you saw the moons, remember, you turned to me and said, Daddy, we're so small. But that makes it more special that we're here together, doesn't it? His voice broke completely. God, Cassie. When did I forget that? When did I decide that being successful was more important than being here with you? He sat like that for hours, holding her hand, talking about memories he'd buried under years of quarterly reports and acquisition strategies. The time they'd built a treehouse together, well, he'd built it, she'd handed him nails and told him about her day. Her first day of kindergarten, when she'd begged him not to leave, and he'd stayed for the first hour, earning strange looks from the teacher. The camping trip where she'd been terrified of a spider, and he'd gently caught it and released it outside, explaining that everything had a right to exist, even things that scared us. Dr. Pearson came in at one point, checking monitors, and stopped short at seeing Victor actually present. Any changes? Victor asked. Her heart rate variability has improved, the doctor said carefully. That's often a good sign. Shows the autonomic nervous system is regulating better. We're considering reducing ventilator support. Do it, Victor said immediately. Mr. Ashford, we typically take a more gradual approach. How gradually? What's the medical justification for waiting? Dr. Pearson shifted uncomfortably. Well, we want to be absolutely certain she can maintain her own breathing without stress, but you think she can? The indicators suggest, yes or no, doctor. Based on your 30 years of experience, do you believe my daughter's brain and body are ready to start taking over breathing on their own? The doctor met his eyes. Yes. I do. Then let's stop keeping her comfortable and let her fight. The next morning, Victor arrived at the hospital at dawn to find Zara waiting at the service entrance. She looked even more haggard than usual, her coat soaked from the rain that had fallen overnight. She's different, Zara said without preamble. Since yesterday. Since you actually stayed with her. She feels lighter. Less afraid. Victor studied her, this strange young woman who'd crashed into his life with impossible claims. Come with me. Sir. You heard me. Come to her room. I can't. I'm not family, they won't let me. You're with me. That's enough. He started walking, and after a moment, Zara followed. The ICU nurses gave Zara's disheveled appearance skeptical looks, but no one questioned Victor Ashford. In room 507, Margaret was already there, sitting on the other side of the bed. Victor. She looked surprised. And who? Margaret, this is Zara. She's. Victor paused, unsure how to explain. She's been helpful. Zara, this is my ex-wife, Margaret. Margaret extended her hand cautiously. Zara shook it, looking overwhelmed. Dr. Pearson is reducing the ventilator support this morning, Victor explained. I wanted us all here. If there's any truth to what I've been told, Cassandra needs to know she's not alone. The process was terrifying. Dr. Pearson gradually decreased the ventilator's pressure support, forcing Cassandra's own respiratory muscles to take over more of the work. At first, nothing seemed to change. Then her chest movements became slightly more pronounced, less perfectly timed with the machine. Her oxygen saturation is holding stable, Dr. Pearson noted, watching the monitors. Respiratory rate is rising, that's expected as she compensates. Still within acceptable parameters. Zara had her eyes closed, one hand pressed to her temple. She's fighting, she whispered. She's so tired, but she's fighting. She can hear your voice, she nodded toward Victor. She wants to prove she can do this. She wants you to be proud. I am proud, Victor said, his voice breaking. He squeezed Cassandra's hand. Cassie, if you can hear me, I am so incredibly proud of you. You're the strongest person I know. Stronger than I ever was. Margaret was crying openly now, stroking their daughter's hair. Come back to us, baby. We need you. She's asking about the stars, Zara said, her eyes still closed. Something about the Jupiter moons. She wants to see them again with you. Victor let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. We will, Cassie. I promise. We'll set up the telescope on the roof, and we'll stay out there all night if we have to. Just come back. Minutes stretched into an hour. Cassandra's vital signs fluctuated, but remained stable. Her spontaneous breathing efforts grew stronger, and then, so subtle that Victor almost missed it, her right index finger twitched. Did you see that? Margaret gasped. Dr. Pearson was immediately attentive, checking responses. Ms. Ashford. Cassandra. If you can hear me, can you move your fingers again? Nothing, then, deliberate this time, her right hand squeezed, just barely, but unmistakably, around Victor's hand. The room erupted. Dr. Pearson called for his team, checking pupil responses, testing reflexes. Cassandra's eyes began to move beneath her closed lids, rapid eye movement indicating higher brain activity. She's transitioning toward consciousness, Dr. Pearson said, unable to hide his excitement. This is remarkable. After 3 weeks, to see this level of response, she's scared of the tube, Zara said suddenly. In her throat. She knows she's waking up, but she can feel it, and she's panicking. Her heart rate is climbing, a nurse confirmed. Cassandra, listen to me, Dr. Pearson said in the calm, authoritative voice doctor's master. There's a tube helping you breathe. Don't fight it. We're going to remove it very soon, but I need you to stay calm. Can you understand me? Squeeze your father's hand if you understand. Another squeeze, stronger this time. We need to extubate, Dr. Pearson decided. She's fighting the vent, and she's clearly got the respiratory drive. Let's get her out. The next 15 minutes were a blur. Cassandra was given medication to reduce the panic response. The ventilator tube was carefully removed, replaced with an oxygen mask. Her first unassisted breath was ragged and harsh, followed by a fit of coughing that seemed to go on forever. But she was breathing on her own, her eyes fluttered, struggling to open against the bright lights. Margaret dimmed them immediately. Slowly, painstakingly, Cassandra's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then gradually sharpening as they landed on Victor's face. Dad? The word came out as barely a croak, ravaged by the breathing tube. Victor couldn't speak. He could only nod, tears streaming down his face, holding his daughter's hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to earth. I knew you'd come, Cassandra whispered. Knew you'd hear. The recovery was long and difficult. Cassandra had to relearn basic functions, walking, eating solid food, writing. Her memory of the accident itself remained mercifully blank, but she had vivid, strange memories of her time in the coma. It was like being underwater, she told Victor during one of his now daily visits. I could see shapes moving above me, hear muffled sounds. I tried so hard to scream, to tell everyone I was still there. But nothing worked. But someone heard you, Victor said quietly. He'd arranged for Zara to have a room in a modest hotel nearby, nothing fancy, just clean and safe. He'd also hired a private investigator to check her story. The details were heartbreaking: a full scholarship to Northwestern, studying neuroscience. A relationship that turned violent. A restraining order that was never enforced. A beating that left her hospitalized for 2 weeks, and yes, with a severe concussion that doctors had warned might cause permanent neurological changes. She'd lost her scholarship due to missed classes. Lost her apartment when she couldn't pay rent. Her family in Atlanta had disowned her years ago for reasons she wouldn't discuss. She'd been living on the streets for 8 months. Why didn't you ask me for help? Victor asked when he visited her hotel room with a proposition. That first day, when you told me about Cassie, you could have demanded money. I would have paid anything. Zara sat on the edge of the bed, looking uncomfortable in the clean space. Because that would have made it transactional. Your daughter deserved your presence because she's your daughter, not because I manipulated you into it. The ability you have, can you still hear her? Zara shook her head. It faded after she woke up. Now it's just quiet. Which is honestly a relief. I thought I was losing my mind. Victor pulled out a folder. I've been thinking about what you said. About my company being built on cost-benefit analysis. About viewing people as investments. You were right. And I want to change that. Mr. Ashford, I'm starting a new division of Ashford Technologies. Focused on making our treatments accessible to people regardless of their ability to pay. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands both the science and what it's like to be on the outside looking in. Zara stared at him. You want me to work for you? I want you to work with me. Full scholarship to finish your degree, online classes while you're getting the division off the ground. Competitive salary. Benefits. An apartment. And the freedom to tell me when I'm being an arrogant ass who's lost sight of what matters. I'm not qualified, you're the most qualified person I know. You stood in an alley and told a billionaire he was failing his daughter. Not many people have that kind of courage. Victor leaned forward. I can't undo the years I wasted prioritizing the wrong things. But I can make different choices going forward. Cassandra is going to recover fully, the doctors are sure of it now. And when she does, I want her to see that her father learned something. That hearing her voice changed me. Zara was quiet for a long moment. What if I fail? Then you fail. And you get up and try again. That's what I'm learning. That trying, being present, showing up even when it's hard, that's what actually matters. The rooftop of Victor's penthouse had been transformed. Cassandra's telescope, the same one from her childhood, lovingly maintained, sat on a professional-grade mount. Beside it was a newer, more powerful model. Cassandra, walking with only the slightest limp now, adjusted the focus on the larger telescope. Got it. Dad, come look, you can see the great red spot. Victor joined her, marveling not at Jupiter, but at his daughter. Healthy, laughing, alive. Pretty cool, right? Cassandra grinned. Zara said she'd never used a telescope before. She's missing out. She'll be here soon. She had a presentation to the board this afternoon. The accessibility division is exceeding all our projections. Of course it is. Zara's brilliant. Cassandra adjusted the telescope for the next visitor. You know what I remember most about the coma? Not the fear, or the confusion. I remember the moment you finally came and sat with me. Really sat with me. It was like a weight lifted. Like I'd been trying to swim toward the surface, and suddenly the water wasn't so heavy anymore. Victor put his arm around his daughter's shoulders, a gesture that would have felt impossibly awkward a year ago, and now felt like the most natural thing in the world. I almost lost you, he said quietly. Not just to the accident. I almost lost you to my own stubbornness, my belief that success was more important than presence. But you didn't, Cassandra pointed out. Because someone cared enough to make you listen. The rooftop door opened, and Zara emerged, looking professional in a blazer and carrying a tablet. She'd put on healthy weight, and her hair was styled. But her eyes still held that same intense intelligence. Sorry I'm late, she said. The board had a lot of questions about the community outreach program. Good questions or annoying questions? Cassandra asked. Both. But your dad backed me up. Zara smiled at Victor. He's getting better at the whole people over profit thing. I have good teachers, Victor said. They spent the evening on that rooftop, 3 people whose lives had intersected in the most unlikely way. They looked at stars and planets, made jokes, ate pizza straight from the box. Margaret joined them later, and for the first time in years, she and Victor operated as a team, different from their marriage, but still connected. Still family. As Cassandra showed Zara how to track Saturn through the telescope, Victor found himself thinking about that morning in the alley. How close he'd come to walking past, to dismissing the homeless girl as beneath his notice. How many other voices had he ignored over the years, convinced that his way was the only way that mattered. What are you thinking about? Zara asked, catching him in his reverie. About listening, Victor said. About how the most important messages often come from the most unexpected sources. Very philosophical for a tech mogul. I prefer reformed tech mogul. He smiled. Besides, you're the one who taught me that hearing and listening are different things. I spent years hearing Cassandra's needs and never really listening to them. And now? Zara prompted. Now I'm learning. Every day. He looked at his daughter, alive and vibrant under the stars. I'm learning that the numbers in a bank account don't tell you what you're worth. That success is measured in moments like this, not quarterly earnings reports. That sometimes the people we dismiss as having nothing are the ones with the most important things to say. Cassandra appeared beside them, pulling both adults toward the telescope. Stop being deep and profound for 5 seconds and look at this nebula. It's amazing. They looked. It was amazing. The Orion Nebula, vast and complex, a stellar nursery where new stars were being born. It seemed impossible that they could see such a thing from a Chicago rooftop, but there it was, proof that distance didn't mean disconnection, that light could travel across the cosmos, and still reach the human eye. You know what Zara told me once? Cassandra said, her voice soft in the darkness. When she used to hear my thoughts during the coma. She said it was like picking up a radio signal. That my consciousness was broadcasting, trying to reach anyone who would tune in. And somehow, she was the only one on the right frequency. The universe works in mysterious ways, Margaret offered. Or maybe it's simpler than that, Victor said. Maybe Zara could hear Cassie, because she took the time to listen. Really listen. Not with her ears but with, I don't know, empathy. Compassion. The part of us that recognizes another person's humanity regardless of circumstances. Zara looked uncomfortable with the praise. I think we're giving me too much credit. I was just a person in an alley who happened to. You were a person in an alley who saw a man failing his daughter, and had the courage to tell him so, Victor interrupted. Don't diminish that. You saved her life. You saved mine, too, in a different way. A comfortable silence settled over the group. Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to human drama, but somehow essential to it. They'd navigated by these lights for millennia, used them to mark time and seasons, seen in them the faces of gods and heroes. Tonight, 4 people stood beneath those stars, and saw what really mattered: each other. The Ashford Foundation's annual gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Chicago Hilton. 500 guests in evening wear mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, sipping champagne and bidding on auction items. The event would raise close to $8 million for programs supporting homeless populations, with a special focus on young people who'd fallen through society's cracks. Victor took the stage to applause. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice carrying the confidence of a practiced speaker. 2 years ago, I stood in a very different place, at the top of an empire built on profit margins and market dominance. I thought I had it all figured out. I was wrong. He gestured to the screen behind him, which showed a photo of the alley behind Chicago Memorial Hospital. This is where my real education began. Where a young woman I'd been conditioned to overlook taught me the difference between success and significance. Between hearing and listening. The next slide showed Cassandra, healthy and vibrant, at her high school graduation. My daughter nearly died, not just from her injuries but from my negligence. From my inability to see that what she needed most wasn't the best doctors, or the most expensive equipment. She needed her father. And I wouldn't have understood that if someone hadn't cared enough to tell me a difficult truth. He found Zara in the crowd. She was seated at a table with other Ashford Foundation staff, looking slightly uncomfortable in her evening gown. When their eyes met, she gave him a small nod of encouragement. The woman who changed my life was homeless when I met her. Society had failed her in countless ways. And yet she still had the compassion to worry about a stranger's daughter. Still had the strength to confront a powerful man. Still had the hope that people could change. Victor smiled. "I'm happy to report that Zara Mitchell is now the executive director of the Ashford Foundation. Under her leadership, we've housed over 200 homeless individuals, provided scholarships to 50 students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and funded 3 new clinics offering free mental health services. She's turned a tax write-off vanity project, which is what I'd originally envisioned, into an organization that's actually changing lives." The applause was thunderous. Zara looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. But beyond the numbers, Victor continued, "What I want people to understand is this: we all encounter people every day who we've been trained to dismiss. The homeless person on the corner. The janitor cleaning our offices. The server at our restaurants. The factory worker making our products. We hear their presence, but we don't listen to their humanity. My daughter could have died because of my arrogance. Because I couldn't imagine that someone without wealth or status could have anything to teach me. I'm standing here today, with my daughter alive and my life transformed, because one person refused to accept that dismissal. One person insisted on being heard." He paused, letting the words settle. "So here's my challenge to everyone in this room: stop walking past. Stop looking through people as if they're invisible. Stop assuming that the volume of someone's voice, or the size of their bank account determines the value of what they have to say. Listen. Really listen. Because the voice you ignore might be the one you need most to hear." Later, after the speeches and auctions and photo opportunities, a smaller group gathered in a private room: Victor, Cassandra, Margaret, Zara, and a few close friends. "That was embarrassing," Zara said, though she was smiling. "You made me sound like some kind of hero." "You are a hero," Cassandra insisted. "You literally saved my life. Your doctors saved your life. I just encouraged your dad to pay attention." "No," Victor said firmly. "Cass is right. The doctors kept her alive, but you gave me the information I needed to actually help her. And more than that, you showed me that I'd been living half a life. Working 100 hours a week, building an empire, missing everything that mattered." "So what would you tell your younger self?" Margaret asked. "The man you were before the accident." Victor considered. "I'd tell him that the scoreboard he's watching is measuring the wrong game. That 30 years from now, no one will remember his quarterly earnings or his market share. But the people in his life, his daughter, his ex-wife who he still cares about, the employees whose lives he impacts, they'll remember whether he was present. Whether he listened. Whether he used his power to lift others up, or just to elevate himself." "Very wise," Zara teased. "Almost like someone taught you that." "Someone did. Someone who had every reason to be bitter and cynical, who'd been beaten down by circumstances, and by people who should have protected her. And yet she still chose compassion. Still chose to speak up when she saw someone failing at what mattered most." Cassandra raised her glass of sparkling cider. "To unexpected teachers. To second chances," Margaret added. "To listening," Victor said. "To all of us," Zara finished. broken and healing and trying our best. They clinked glasses, this unlikely family forged not by blood alone, but by crisis and compassion and the willingness to change. Outside, the city hummed with its endless activity. Somewhere in it, other stories were unfolding, other chances to listen, to connect, to recognize the humanity in unexpected places. The world was full of voices, broadcasting their hopes and fears and needs, waiting for someone to tune in. Victor Ashford had spent most of his life only listening to the frequencies that confirmed what he already believed. Now he knew better. Now he understood that wisdom and truth didn't respect socioeconomic boundaries. That the most important lesson of his life had come from a young woman in an alley whom most people walked past without seeing. Turn off the machines, she'd said. Let your daughter fight, but she'd been asking him to do more than that. She'd been asking him to turn off the machinery of his old life, the automated responses, the algorithmic thinking, the systematic dismissal of anything that didn't fit his narrow worldview. She'd been asking him to wake up. And finally, after almost losing everything that mattered, he had.